What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boyce, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, second time on the program, Damian Becton, comic Worlds Away, issue 2. Thank you for being here, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me back. I'm glad to be back. I'm excited for what's about to happen. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Yeah, and to be honest, it hasn't even been that long.
Nope, it's been like what, probably not even 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Maybe?
2 months ago. So to be honest, you are churning these out pretty quick, brother. You know, this is a good sign.
Hey, I promise you, when the first one dropped, when I started sending them out, you know, I always had an idea it was going to be a pretty quick turnaround. But I promise you, when when I sent them out, I dropped the Kickstarter, the pre-launch page like that. I think I sent them on Sunday or on Saturday. And then the pre-launch page was up on Tuesday or Wednesday. It just happened to be like that. Hey, but it worked out. I couldn't ask for a better turnaround.
Look, one of the best things as far as customer retention is the fulfillment process.
Yep.
Once we feel we got the product in our hands, we know that we basically want to make that purchase one more time.
Yeah, and that's something that I had to because you know it was fun making the book. But boy, I tell you, packaging and put it in the boxes, that was whew. But it was fun too. You know, it was like cool seeing, just really visualizing how many people actually was interested in this project. It was like 100 plus physical rewards. So shout out to y'all if y'all chose to back it. And I appreciate everyone who supported us and everyone who didn't support us, who even just clicked on the page. I appreciate y'all.
Word. Now I'm pretty sure you felt like the UPS man for about a good month.
Hey man, it was fun. It was. I promise you, it was fun. You know, it was probably the least fun part of the entire process, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, man.
Okay. All right. So if we can we recap Worlds Away issue 1? So we are basically centering this storyline by a young girl by the name of Mackenzie and her mother, Serenity. If you would, please.
Sure. So in Worlds Away issue number 1, and we'll talk about some spoilers. In issue 1, Serenity and Mackenzie, they end up crash landing. It's like a futuristic kind of universe. And they crash land on an alien planet. They don't know what kind of planet it is. They haven't traveled too far away from the ship. But in their journey, they find out that there's an energy source that could be used to fuel their escape from this planet. And then in their journey for looking for this energy source, they find out that this planet is not a sci-fi type planet. It's more of a mystical, magical type planet with with people on there. And these people, these aliens, they have mystical powers, they have magical powers, and they get accosted by this witch. They don't know what the witch wants. The witch is trying to abduct Mackenzie. And, you know, as soon as that happens, Serenity's mother mode just kicks right in. And Serenity and Mackenzie, they're equipped with these Iron Man type high-tech armor and weapons. But it's a huge clash of sci-fi and fantasy, and that's where we kind of leave off. They get accosted by the witch, and they're in mid-battle, and we got to see how they escape this one, if they escape.
Right, because if we're talking about in the first issue, about 75% of this book, of course, was built on the origin of Serenity and Mackenzie and what they basically went through and the dynamic in which Mackenzie held with her father, Zaire, correct?
Zaire, yep.
Yeah, and basically like how their relationship unfolded and the resentment that she has towards her mother, Serenity.
Yep. And again, I may have talked about it last time, but a lot of this story, it comes from personal experience. It's not quite as extreme as this. You know, okay. I got along with my mother great, but my mother and my father, they were separated when I was growing up. I lived with my mom. I preferred to be with my dad, but it wasn't until later then I realized, how hard my mom worked. She worked from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. And it was my dad who always picked me up. But from school, he went to my games. I only really saw my mom on the weekend and stuff. So this story is kind of a reflection of that. Again, it's more of an extreme reflection of that. But you'll see a lot of that in Serenity's relationship with Mackenzie, the mother and the daughter and the mother. Mackenzie, the daughter, you very much see how she doesn't get along. She really isn't too fond of her mother. She would prefer to be with her dad, but some things happen at the beginning of the story where that can't quite happen. And she is, I like the word you use, she's kind of resentful towards her mother. She really, and honestly, they're really not huge fans of each other. But Serenity, that's her baby. Serenity, the mom, she would do anything, literally anything for her daughter, even if her mother, even if Mackenzie disagrees with it, even if it's at the cost of their relationship, she is willing to do whatever it takes to keep her daughter safe. And that's what the real crux of this story is. Her literally doing whatever it takes to get off of this planet, even if it costs them their relationship. And they fight mystical beasts along the way. That is
one thing that you see consistent in this storyline. Now, even in the midst of the absence of Zaire, you realize how big of a protector Serenity is towards Mackenzie, and how that is the motivating factor of how their relationship works. I mean, it may not work like a quintessential mother-daughter relationship does, but it seems to benefit them in some sort of way, because through the commands and how she speaks to her and everything, not to say that she's militant, but she is kind of militant, in the way that she describes herself. Now there is a small connection, of course, that she kind of uses to link herself to her father, and that is pretty much the connection that she has with her father is through music. You saw that probably like in the first page. There's also a QR code in the book that kind of like details what is it? It's like a playlist, correct?
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to add an extra twist to the book, something an extra layer to it. And one of the things that I saw, I think it's becoming more and more popular, the use of QR codes in comic books.
Correct.
And I always want to incorporate some kind of twist or some kind of music in some way. But instead of just putting the lyrics or just putting like musical notes in the letters, the thing that I chose to do was actually curate a playlist, like you said. So in every issue, whether it's a splash page or one panel here, there will be some type of music in each issue. So in issue 2, there's going to be one. I think it's page 2 or 3. I'm not entirely sure.
I believe so. Yeah.
So whenever that pops up, it's whatever happens in the QR code. That's exactly what Serenity is listening to, or Mackenzie or Zaire will be listening to on that specific panel. But really, it could have been. I could have chosen anything for that. I guess that binding factor, or that thing that holds Mackenzie and Zaire, the father and the daughter, their relationship together. For me, and that came from me and my dad. Like I said, I preferred to stay with my dad because we got along great. We was chilling all day. He picked me up from school. He would pick me up from practice. He went to all my games. But comic books were really the one thing that to this day that is probably our real super connection. He's the one who got me into comic books. He's the one who got me into Marvel, Incredible Hulk. His two favorites are the Incredible Hulk and Thor. And like I said, to this day, every time he visits me, I take him to the comic book store. That's right down the road from me, and that's how we bond. And I wanted to, I guess, kind of immortalize that relationship with him in this comic book as well. So that relationship that Mackenzie and Zaire have in this, with music is kind of like a reflection of me and my dad with comic books. But yeah, and I think it turned out well. Actually, in the next issue, the instrumental that I used is a beat that I made back when I was 15, 16 years old in high school. This
Ah,
first beat, the beat that I made, oh, the beat that's in issue one, it's from the homie Paget. He goes by Eli. His producer name is Eli. I call him Paget, but he made that beat and it's real dope. So if you do have issue one, make sure you scan that QR code and take a listen to Paget's beat.
okay. Now, if we're looking at the cliffhanger of this, and you alluded to it earlier,
Mhm.
they figured that this planet that they were on was more so uninhabitable, and them researching the area looking for this energy source, they didn't suspect that anybody would be on this planet, let alone a deadly sorceress with mystical powers
Mhm.
who is taking a liking to Mackenzie more than anything, and it leaves the audience that much more curious as to why.
Yep. We'll see a little bit more. If I'm lucky enough to make issue 3 and 4, we'll see a few more characters like this. We're going to dive deeper into these mystical and magical type characters. I don't want to spoil too much, but I will say that the witch, or the character that's accosting or that runs up on them, they're looking for the same resource. So this might not be they might not find what they're looking for in this issue, or maybe even the next issue. But eventually, that source will show up. That source of energy will show up, and it'll cause some problems for pretty much everyone. And hopefully, if you guys stick around, you'll see some twists and turns along the way that'll really show what these characters are like. Specifically, Serenity will show exactly what she's willing to do to keep her daughter safe. Again, I keep talking about that, but you know that is the crux of the story.
This is true. Now there's this, of course, standoff scene in the last couple pages, and then we're pushing ourselves into book 2. And in book 2, we get introduced to a couple of new characters, in which you've alluded to in the summary. One by the name of K'lar, and the other one by Cy'lu. Now they are a father-daughter, which is another pretty much parallel as to the relationship that Serenity and Mackenzie are having. What can you tell us about these two new characters?
What I can tell you about them is, just like Mackenzie and Serenity, they're both extremely dangerous. They're both armed, but their relationship is a little bit different than Serenity and Mackenzie, where Mackenzie and Serenity, they don't get along at all, and that's evident from page 3, 4, 5 in Worlds Away #1. In issue 2, when we meet these two characters, you'll see the father and daughter, K'lar and Cy'lu, they get along great, or they get along better than those two at least. But there's like a connecting thread that shows K'lar, the father, and Serenity. They have something in common, and that's they want to keep their children safe. But the difference is how they go about that, and that may or may not cause some issues going forward.
Now, being how we already understand the dynamic between Serenity and Mackenzie, and we understand the absence of Zaire, are we to then think that is this also similar in K'lar and Cy'lu, because we don't see a mother figure around?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not, it's not too subtle, but you'll see that Cy'lu and K'lar, they're pretty much gonna be what Mackenzie and Zaire would be if they were together. If it ended up being Mackenzie and Zaire stuck on this planet, then they would be like looking into a mirror. But it's not, and because of that, Mackenzie will feel a certain way. Serenity might feel a certain way. because they both miss Zaire, the father,
Hmm.
and there's a reflection of him right there,
Mm.
of everything that he could be right there, and that's going to cause that may or may not cause some issues, especially because Zaire is, I guess, more kind-hearted, and K'lar personifies that as well. There's some lines that K'lar, Zaire won't cross regardless,
Right.
but Serenity, anything is on the table when it comes to keeping Mackenzie safe.
Now, would you say that the deadly sorceress that we saw at the cliffhanger of issue 1 and the race of I guess of species that seems to be inhabiting the planet with K'lar and Cy'lu, are they the same species?
I would no, not exactly. You'll see again. I can't wait for. There's some things I haven't put on the page yet.
Right.
There's going to be all types of different creatures, all types of different races, all types of different alien races on this planet. Um, and we'll see going forward. Again, I keep saying if I'm lucky enough to make these books,
Hmm.
you'll see that there's going to be, even if I like thinking ahead to issue 7, 8, 9, if I'm lucky enough to make those, you'll see that there's so much out there that I want to talk about, or so much out there I want to create. They're not quite the same race or not the same type of being, but you'll see that a lot of them are after the same energy source, or a lot of them are after the same power source or the same relic, so that they're able to, I guess, win more. A lot of them are power hungry. A lot of them are just trying to survive. A lot of them um, are they're just living. And once you get a little bit of power, or once you get a lot of power, you're probably going to want more. And that's what a lot of these characters are. A lot of them are ruthless. A lot of them are killers. But like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But to answer your question, no, not quite.
Okay.
They come from the same planet, but they're not quite the same race.
So I'm gonna suspect that the relationship of K'lar and Cy'lu is going to immediately impact and pretty much hold up a mirror to uh the relationship of Serenity and Mackenzie moving forward.
Absolutely. And they're gonna, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but there is gonna be a bit of resentment there. There is gonna be a bit of what could have been in the back of Mackenzie's head, the daughter's head. And there's going to be a little bit of resentment there for Serenity, because Serenity, she was with Zaire for years and years and years, and there's a lot of, I guess, it's like looking into a mirror, or it's like having a second Zaire there. They're not quite the same, but there's shades of Zaire in this new character, K'lar.
Mm. So issue 1 being put out maybe around a couple months ago.
Mhm.
How would you say the reception from Worlds Away 1 was to the fans out there that bought the book, to your family, and how you described it vividly, and it being almost in a parallel sense to your own family? How did
Yeah,
that go?
man, like everyone who's reached out to me, everyone who's messaged me, just telling me how much they love the book, how they were able to like connect with any part of the book, even like the QR code they thought was a good addition to it. Everyone that I've talked to has been, they've been very receptive to it. They enjoyed it very much, and I'm so thankful for them. But I attribute a lot of that to the other people I've collaborated with to the book, because it looks great. I
Oh
can
yeah.
write whatever I can write whatever I want, but if the art isn't on point, if the lettering isn't on point, if the coloring isn't on point, then it won't be as good. It won't look as good as it does. So I want to give a shout out to Christian Prunesti, who's the artist. Um, he's absolutely killing it. I can't wait for you guys to see issue 2. Luana Christine, who's on the colors, Reed Hinckley Barnes, who does the letters, and Devin R. Scott, who's the editor on the book. But like I said, everyone who's reached out to me just to even send me a message saying, "Hey, I got the book. It's so dope. I can't wait for issue 2." Everyone who said that, and just about everyone who's reached out pretty much had great things to say about it. Thank y'all. But again, I attribute a lot of it to my collaborators on the project.
Definitely the creative team. Look, you could definitely see the evolution in a lot of the artwork from issue 1 to issue 2, just in the samples that are being put out there. So definitely kudos to them. Now, you, of course, being a Mad Cave talent winner, and have had the opportunity to pretty much take advice, have had mentorship from couple pros in the game, you know, people that have done indie comics for a good while now. What has been the insight amongst those peers towards the work that you're doing now?
Man, I want to give a shout out to Brian Hawkins. He's the editor for Mad Cave. Oh, he's one of the editors for Mad Cave, and he has a book with Aftershock. He has a bunch of indie books coming out.
Yeah, the Vineyard.
He edits a lot of stuff. And David Hazan, who's doing Nottingham as well. But the biggest thing that they've told me, and it might sound cliche, but you just got to build, man. Once you got one thing under your belt, now you got to see if you can keep it going. Now you got to see, all right, what's the next step in this process? What's the next step in this book? And that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I got lucky with the Mad Cave. I won't say I got lucky. Obviously, I think I did something great when I started. But there's a touch of luck in there. But I got my foot in the door. Now I'm just trying to capitalize. And what a lot of people have been telling me is, you know, now that you've got that first step in there, what are you going to do next? How are you going to capitalize on this opportunity? And the way that I'm doing that, what a lot of people have been saying is, you know, create. That's really it. Now, put more stuff out. Don't just put anything out. Make sure everything is on point as well. Because you don't just want to put out, you know, what everyone else is putting out. Make sure you have your own stamp on it. Make sure you tell the stories that you want to tell. Don't just tell a story because it's what everyone else is doing. Tell the stories that you want to tell. Tell the stories that mean something to you, but also make sure it's make sure it's good. Find an editor. Make sure you get a second pair of eyes on it. But you know, shout out to Brian Hawkins. He's always telling me, you know, build. He always says, I can just hit him up randomly, and he says, "Hey, dude, you got it. Build. Keep going. You're not done yet. This is step 1. This is step 2. What about step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?" So a lot of them have been extremely encouraging. A lot of them have been, you know, just kind and helpful and just giving me advice whenever I need it. But yeah, I mean, everyone's been great. You know, even I'm gonna add to this. Sorry. You know, making comic books, honestly, it's competition. You know, there's only so many spots in Mad Cave. There's only so many spots for Scout Comics. There's only so many spots for whatever publisher, because they can't publish everyone. So it is, in a sense, it's everyone, even your friends, they're competition. But shout out to like the indie comic community, because even though it is competition, everyone's rooting for everyone. No one's gonna get mad if you get a publishing deal with so-and-so comics. Everyone's rooting for you. Everyone's, you know, willing to contribute, congratulate you if something happens, and, you know, they keep putting out dope stuff.
Dope. Now, your beginning, aside from the talent competition, you had the opportunity to write in a few anthologies in the beginning of your first published works. Would you say that you are an advocate for future writers, future comic book writers, to start with short stories first and then build upon that in order to basically begin their first issue, like the first full length issue?
Yeah, I would absolutely. A lot of, even when I first started out, I think I made a mistake with having this huge epic story that's gonna take 50 issues to complete. I had this whole, and then after I saw how the pros, the people who've been in the game 5, 6, 7 years, after I talked to them, after I studied them a little bit, a lot of people said the same thing. Start off small. And you'll start off small with the possibility of expanding.
Hmm.
Tell a self-contained story. Even if you don't publish it, even if you're just writing a smaller story, there's always the opportunity to expand upon that. But yeah, I absolutely think that the anthologies are great ways to hone your craft, to practice, because you're gonna have to practice. It's just like any other skill.
Right.
But once you get a few stories down, again, it's just like any other skill. Once you get a few stories down, then you'll start getting the hang of it. I don't claim to be the best writer ever. I'm still learning. Brian Hawkins, David Hazan from Mad Cave, they told me, hey, dude, you got to remember that comic books is a visual medium, so you
Hmm.
don't have to have. I remember because when I was doing the script for, it was just announced today. I did a Nottingham story for Mad Cave, but when I
Right.
sent them the first draft of the script, both of them said, "Hey, man, you got to remember that comic books is a visual medium. Medium. You don't have to have words on every single page. Trust your artist to tell this part of the story.
Hmm.
Trust that they know what they're doing, because I think I just started to get too wordy. I was trying to explain what's happening in this panel by so and so saying something, and David Hazan, Brian Hawkins, they said, "Hey, the readers aren't dumb, man. They know what's going on. Trust your artist."
Right.
But yeah, so I would say definitely, if you want to create, especially in the comic books industry or in the indie comic book industry, find some anthologies, pitch to them. If you're lucky, you'll get some feedback. You will get declined. You will get rejected. That's just a part of it. I think just this past 2 years, I probably got rejected from 4 or 5. Got into 1 or 2 or 3 of them.
Hey,
But that's a part of the game, man. As much success as you see Brian Hawkins, as much success as you see all these people in Marvel and DC and Vault and Image, I promise you, they've had more rejections than they have acceptances.
hey, 2 out of 5 is a very good batting average in baseball.
Hey, man.
You know, so
Hey,
I
yeah,
don't find that to be too bad. Now,
yeah.
how does someone like yourself find balance? You are an educator, first and
Mhm.
foremost, and then being a full-time comic writer. How are you doing this?
It's I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. Especially worrying about the Kickstarter. I was just telling you, I'm always checking it. I try to force myself not to check it. I'm not gonna lie, it's really, really tough. But if it's something you enjoy, and if it's something like I enjoy coming up with new ways to market Worlds Away, I'm like, all right, let me show off some of the trading cards today. Let me show off this new page that I got today. Um, if it's really fun for me, so um, that's why I keep going with. Um, One, it's very difficult to balance everything, especially if you have a family, especially if you have a social life and all this. But when it's fun, it makes it a little bit easier. And for me, and it's not fun for everybody,
Hmm.
but for me, that makes just a little bit easier to handle, because I like going out there. I like going out on Twitter and trying to find new ways to twist the promotion a little bit, just to get 1 or 2 backers. But again, it is probably the toughest part of it. But it's for me, it's still fun. So that's how I try to manage.
Dope, dope. Now, what do you hope to achieve with the release of issue 2? I know that generally, like, it's always there's always the highest of highs when somebody releases their first issue.
Mhm.
And then the second one is like the bridge. It's the crust of the pizza. You know, most of the people eat it. I'm sorry, most of the people don't eat it. But when people do like the crust of pizza. Not me. I know a lot of people eat the crust of pizza, you know. But
Yeah.
what do you hope to achieve in issue 2?
One, I hope to solidify, that core group of people or those core supporters who I know are on board for issue 3 and 4. It was real dope. I'm like mid-campaign now, not even a weekend, but a lot of the people who backed the first issue are back for second issue, and just to see them invested in the story. And it's people that I haven't interacted with on Twitter. It's people who I haven't interacted with in real life. But just seeing that support from the people that genuinely like this, that's what I'm looking forward to most. Probably finding even more of those people, hopefully reaching more of those people, to come back for issue 3, issue 4, issue 5. And really for issue 2, I just want to get it out there, man, because there's so much more story to tell. And there's so much more of Serenity, specifically Serenity. I keep talking about that Serenity is willing to do anything. And I can't wait to get to the point where I really show everyone that Serenity is really willing to do whatever it takes to get her daughter off this planet. So hopefully if we get funded, we'll be able to show more of that. And I got some trading cards on there too. If you like dope foil trading cards, that's one of the rewards on there. I got a whole stack of them. I can't wait to get them out there. But that, just telling the story is pretty much the biggest thing for me, because I'm having fun writing it. I'm having fun and just thinking about where the story can go next.
Dope. And I am looking forward to it. I appreciate you being here and doing this with me once again, man. This of course issue 2. I enjoyed the hell out of issue 1. I felt like the dynamic with the with basically Serenity and Mackenzie just basically bolstered the fact that how I wanted to read this going forth. So I appreciate you doing this with me again. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully you have me back on for issue 3, issue 4, issue 5.
It ain't nothing but a word.
Hey, man, because we'll real quick. Sorry. But
No worries.
hopefully you'll see Worlds Away in some local comic book stores next year. I can't say anything quite yet, but hopefully you'll see it in comic book stores nationwide next year.
Okay. Hey, look, you heard it here first, man. I appreciate it. But look, James Grandmaster Facts voice, Damian Becton, Worlds Away, issue 2, now live on Kickstarter. How many days left?
I think like 23, so we got a good minute.
Got a good minute. He already over 50%. He gonna make it. All right. So for everybody out there, go get that on Kickstarter live right now. We are out.